Hi everybody, and welcome to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. In this video, we begin with a very intense story from the subreddit Relationship Advice with an extended update including information from the comments section. And then we continue with some stinky malicious compliance. And like always, if you want to move around the different parts of the video, you can always use the timestamps. Now, let's get started with the first story. This post is from the subreddit Relationship Advice, and it's by user Artie-Shockers. I, 29 male, can't seem to forgive my sister, 26 female, after she completely bailed on me when I was on the brink of being homeless. My sister, from a young age, has had only one person to rely on, and that person was me. We come from a broken family with one parent that was only around till I was 5 and the other who was stuck in a cycle of addiction. Because of our situation, I grew up very quickly and shielded her from as much as I could. She obviously was aware of what was going on, but she was not in the crosshair. I started with stealing from our mother to make sure we had food and bills were paid. I got a part-time job at 13 because we couldn't rely on our mother, and when I graduated, I immediately got 2 jobs and we moved out. I had to push my sister through high school. She wasn't an easy teen for obvious reasons, on top of going month to month trying to get as much money together to pay our bills. At 19, she finally graduated after being held back a year. She changed her tune a lot and she started working as well and had her own place when she was 21. I finally got a shot to do something for myself and got a degree. As a result, I got a much better job, but unfortunately that was right before the pandemic hit, so I pretty much went from hired to fired as I was a new hire. Now, the reason I am saying all of that is not to pat myself on the back, but to stress why my reaction is the way it is. I was out of work, on the brink of losing my apartment, and only had one person who I expected I could turn to, my sister. She was recently married, still lives obviously, with her husband. So I asked if I could stay a few weeks, at most a few months, until I got a new job. It was a no. I was taken aback, but it remained to be a no. A week or two later, I was kicked out of my apartment. I asked again, and it was a no. At this point, I am homeless, and the only reason I didn't end up sleeping on the damn street was that I could crash at a few friends until I got a temporary job. I rented a room with a bunch of roommates for a while, eventually got a job in my field again, and I'm now doing fine. That said, I have not spoken to my sister since. She has called, messaged, banged on my door, sent crying voicemails, apologized dozens of times, tried to explain herself, tried going to my job, tried going to friends, everything. I haven't said a word to her and it's been over a year now. She recently had a child and she is still desperately trying to reach out. She claims her husband refused to let me stay. He even reached out several times to beg me to reach out. But to me, the only time I'd needed her, she basically tells me to F myself. I feel like that was the last push I needed to just end that chapter of my life. I feel bad, but just not bad enough, I guess. Even my friends and my girlfriend are on my case that I should forgive her and that they understood it at first, but now think I'm being an a-hole. What would you guys do? Well, OP, it's a tough situation, but in the end, it is all up to you. Your girlfriend and your friends pushing you to forgive her, that's not right, they shouldn't butt in. They can give you their opinion if you ask, but that's about it. I totally understand that you feel like your sister betrayed you, because she kinda did. She turned her back on you when you needed her, considering everything that you've done for her. Now, of course, the counter-argument would be that she didn't owe you anything, that you did that all of your free will. And yes, that is a very valid argument. However, if you hadn't ever done anything for your sister, I'm pretty sure she would be worse off right now. And in my opinion, you did the right thing. You protected your family, something she wasn't willing to do for you. Now, considering all that, me personally, I would probably sit down with her and try to hear her out, and then I would make a decision about how much we would be in each other's lives. But that's me and I don't have your background, so that's as much as I can say. But what about you guys? What would you guys do if you were in OP's shoes, or what kind of advice would you give him? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. The last Basilope says, tell your friends and girlfriend that only you get to decide when you're ready to talk to your sister, that it's not their place nor their business to try to force you into an interaction that you aren't emotionally ready for. And if they care about you at all, they will shut the F up and let you do things when you are ready to do them. I'd send your sister one message telling her that you aren't closing the door on ever having a relationship with her, but you need her to back off and give you the time and space to work through your feelings of betrayal. That you will reach out to her when and if you are ready to and not a minute before, and the more she pushes, the less you want to be around her. Then get into counseling to work through your feelings, decide how much of a relationship with her you can handle emotionally, and then proceed from there. If your girlfriend and friends keep pushing, then they are only doing so for their own selfish purposes rather than out of concern for you, and you need to shut them down hard. Salsa Rice says, your friends and girlfriend need to back off when this isn't their situation. You decide what you want to do here. They have zero say in the matter. I completely get your anger. You, at your lowest point, needed help. After spending your entire life helping her up, and she said, nah, that inconveniences me, I'd be upset too. The hardest part would be trusting her again, because she's already shown she isn't trustworthy. Impressive Cricket 8 says, so the reason she has become who she is instead of turning to bad friendships, drugs, or who knows what else was your sacrifice and dedication. And while her husband gets to have a functional wife, you get nobody to be there for you. And now that the problem is solved, she feels bad? As for your friends and girlfriend, tell them you appreciate their concern, but your mental health is better this way, and that's your decision, not theirs. She wasn't that worried about you before, why should you be worried about her now? Well, the community came up with some pretty sensitive advice, and they definitely understand OP and his situation. So how about we move on with the update to see what OP ended up doing. So I had a huge amount of people inquiring as to what ended up happening and asking me to make an update should anything happen. And while I wasn't sure if I would or even should, I eventually decided to just go ahead and do it. Let me start by apologizing to the people that commented on my post. Unfortunately, when I decided to reply to a lot of the comments I had been reading, I realized that this subreddit locks the comments after a certain amount of comments have been made or karma has been reached. I am afraid I was not aware of this admittedly very odd rule, so that's on me. I did end up reading most comments and would like to thank everyone for offering advice or just saying something supportive. First, to answer a couple of questions that I was unable to answer, along with addressing some incorrect comments in the previous post that I saw asked quite a few times. 1. The first few no's were without reasonable explanation. I was not aware of her given reason that her husband was not okay with it until later. 2. She did not know she was pregnant when she declined, and most of it happened before she would have even been pregnant in the first place. I mean, most of this took place over a year ago. I even put that in the post, so I am not sure how that math would even work. 3. I am not an anti-vaxxer or dirty or something. There were quite a few comments that theorized this would be the case for her refusal. I got my 2 vaccination shots the moment I could get them. And well, while my personal hygiene is not exactly anyone's business, I shower once a day and my apartment is spotless. 4. A lot of advice and comments seem to be from the perspective of functional families with a functional family structure. That is not the case here. The primary reason I am so gutted about this entire situation is exactly that. This isn't a case of, well, I don't want my cousin to stay in my house, he can stay somewhere else. This is a case of me having sacrificed my entire youth and a significant portion of my adult life for someone that I played no part in creating or have any parental responsibility for. And the first and only time I ever asked her to do something for me as the only person I could reasonably fall back on, and her not doing that, that's more than a familial spat. That is a straight up betrayal. That's also an answer to the people saying that she owes me nothing because I chose to be a parent. Anyway, with that out of the way, I decided to follow some advice given by several people. I told my girlfriend and the friends who involved themselves or were involved by my sister to back off or to lose my number. They do not understand my perspective, and they likely never will, and I need to get that through my head, as I have the tendency to talk about my life as if it is a standard, but it is a standard only to me. Luckily, most people don't go through any of that. I obviously had a longer face-to-face conversation with my girlfriend and with individual close friends, but it boils down to that. One friend kept pestering me about it and I ended up dropping him as a friend, but my girlfriend was apologetic and most friends were either apologetic or said they'd drop it. I ended up writing a long email to my sister, and while I will not copy and paste the entire thing here as it contains a lot of personal information and far more horrible stuff that I am unsure will even be allowed on a sub like this, is more or less boiled down to me explaining to her how her refusal to take me in for what ended up being a few weeks made me feel, and I detailed a long list of things I had done to take care of her. I ended up finishing my email telling her that even if I take her version of the story as truth and her husband is the cause of me not being allowed to stay, that it is entirely irrelevant to me, because that just means she didn't fight for me at all. I also informed her I have no interest in meeting her child as of this moment, and I have no interest in reconnecting with her, and if that changes in the future, I will be the one to contact her. I told her to let this be a lesson to her as it has been a painful lesson to me. Boiled down, I have decided to move on and keep the door on the teeniest of cracks. She has responded a lot since that moment. She seems unable to accept it, but I have not responded since. I feel like seeing her in person and talking to her is essentially relenting to her consistent attempts to contact me, which is something I really do not want to do for two reasons. One, it sets a precedent in terms that enough consistent contacting, bothering, and stalking will force me to forgive her. Two, I simply don't feel like she deserves to be forgiven, at least not yet, and an in-person talk may mean I am swayed to forgive her, which sets another precedent. At this point, however, she shouldn't have to worry about whether I would have done the same. It is an irrelevant question now. If right now she got to my door and had nowhere else to go, I'd probably answer with a simple no. Had the situation been different, I might imagine I would have reacted differently. But since the situation is what it is, I guess I do more or less feel like she owes me to an extent. I did not owe her so much of my life and energy either, but I still did it. That's how she should have been towards me. Now, I wouldn't necessarily view her as a person who just wants stuff from others. It would be an unfair characterization. For example, a lot of people were saying she probably just wants free babysitting, which I really doubt in general. That said, she has been blocked pretty much everywhere apart from my personal mail, which is what I refer to as the tiny opening. Unfortunately, that's what she is using to bombard me with emails, so I may end up blocking her there too. In any case, I am certainly not thinking of re-establishing anything anytime soon. Talking years here. I don't have anything to tell you, I'm afraid, and since the sub only allows one update, well, it is what it is. Again, thank you all for taking the time to respond to my post, and thank you all for your insightful replies. And that is it. That is the extended update with additional information from the comment section. Now, there's no point in commenting OP's decisions and actions because that's done. So I'm just gonna say, OP, hopefully you can work on your feelings of betrayal and maybe someday you will regain contact with your sister and meet her family. Or maybe you won't. But either way, I hope the best for you. Take care, OP. And now we move on to the next post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance and it's by user Grobulox. Parrot says it's not our business what her son does on the community garden, so we let him get up to his neck in crap. Literally. On our community garden, we get teams of kids from the local school to come to help, and it's often the case that they turn up on a Saturday morning as well. They're almost entirely well behaved, which is a good job as there's not a lot we can do about bad behavior beyond a stern voice. Although one time a lad kicked one of our rabbits, so a girl brained him with a shovel. Rough, but effective justice. There's this one lad who came for the first time last week. Don't know him, but we made him feel very welcome. He only lasted half an hour before storming off in tears after his third telling off for spinning around and around holding a tool and then letting it fly off at head height. This morning, his mom, I assume, came with him. I saw him point out my friend and me, but he didn't ask to join in, so after shouting hello, we let them be. After about 10 minutes, he started wandering off and my friend shouted to him, "Don't go round behind the greenhouse, mate, it's not safe round there." Well, his mom had obviously been waiting for this because she went from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds flat, demanding to know, do we own this garden, and if not, what business is it of ours where her son goes? We explained we just want him to be safe, and she replied that she's quite capable of taking care of that herself. Thank you. Fine, on you go. Off he went, exploring behind the greenhouse, which is not safe because it's the compost heap, which is very unstable, and the muck mound, which is a giant pile of horse manure we get delivered every autumn. By the spring, the inside is all nice and rotted down, and the outside is hard, crusty, and less strong than you'd think. After a minute, there was a crunch, a squeal, and I think we did very well to drag him out without saying, "I told you so," or breaking into guffaws. He was absolutely black from chest height downwards, and although well-rotted manure doesn't smell really bad, it is very thick and sticky and slimy. His mom grabbed him without a word and they headed for the gate. He started bawling as soon as the surprise wore off. My friend said, "Would you like some bin bags to spread out in your car?" And to her credit, she did say thanks when he handed them over. I wonder if we'll see them again next week. Opie's edit. To everyone saying we should have made a point of some kind, if you're mean to kids or they think you're making fun of them, they just don't come back. Kids and adults do stupid crap all the time, and you quickly get into the habit of just dusting them down and getting on with things. Don't get me wrong, we definitely laughed about it later, but how's a little knobhead like this going to learn if he doesn't come back to the allotment and get his hands dirty? Well, OP, I'm sure that kid learned to never again walk on crap. This was a great story. Thanks for sharing, OP. And it's that time that we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I certainly did reading them to you. So if you did, then go ahead and give the video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and become a member of our Discord community that just keeps growing and it is fantastic. And like I said in the beginning of the video, all of the relevant links are in the video description below, so be sure to check them out. And finally, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to watch this video. It really does mean a lot to me that you guys enjoy this content, so thank you once again. And having said all that, I will see you guys in the next video.